Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Mighty Matt Podcast. Today is huge. This is my first movie star on the show. I met Gretchen D'Souza at a screening in Laguna Beach of the movie The Best Day Ever, a film about the thrilling sport of adaptive mountain biking. Gretchen appears in the film as part of a camp organized by the Kelly Brush Foundation to encourage people to try this new and exciting sport. So welcome, Gretchen. How are you?
Good. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
I know. It's so great to see you. It's been a little while since we were together down in Laguna. That was such a fun event and such a great movie. So I'm sure you've been doing a lot of traveling around. But I usually kick these off. I always like to say living with a disability takes great strength. So if you could, just tell me about when you became mighty.
Yeah, I love that question. For me, I became mighty on December 26th, 2014. So just a little bit over 11 years now.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was the day my life really changed. I was in a drunk driving crash that left me as a C5, C6 spinal cord injury as well as paralysis.
Okay.
But I think for me, being mighty, it wasn't really about the injury itself, I think. It was about everything that kind of came afterwards.
Sure.
And I think for me, it was more of like learning how to rebuild my life again
Yep.
and rebuild my life and one that I like actually loved living. And
Yep.
so I think for me, it was more of choosing independence and doing things that I've always wanted to do despite the fear and the uncertainty. And that was kind of like discovering a new strength for me. And over time, I think that's when I kind of realized that mighty isn't exactly what happened to me, but it's how I chose to continue living after my
That's
injury.
absolutely wonderful. And during that time, were there particular people that you turned to for emotional support?
Yeah, I think for me, my family has been amazing. They are the most incredible people that have been in my life from the beginning. And I've always had that support, and I'm just so grateful for them. I think it was just as big as a shock for them,
Sure.
that it was for me. And so I think we've grown all together, and we're a tight unit with my parents and my sister. And so they've always been with me every step of the way and whatever that's happened in my life. I think it took me a long time to find community outside of my family and my friends at
Right.
the time.
Sure.
I think it took me a long time. I want to say I think about 8 years until I really found the spinal cord injury community.
Yep.
And it was a game changer. I think how I started was like just finding people on social media and kind of just
Sure.
following them to see like what everybody else was doing and learning from them that way. And
Yeah.
kind of, I think we think of social media as both positive and negative, and I tend to look at it as more of like a positive side of like, okay, connecting with people and try to figure out like I see them doing this, so maybe I can try this, and kind of challenging me and encouraging me to try new things in my new body. So it took me a long time, about 8 years. And then I think also people fail to realize too is that in the beginning, you're not as quite like independent, or like you're not focused on there's too many things to focus on in the beginning, right?
Sure.
And so for me, it was didn't have that independence or that confidence to go and meet new people in person.
Sure.
And I was still trying to learn my own body and my own abilities too. And so I think around the 8-year mark is where I felt like, oh, I could be independent. And that's kind of where I started traveling and being able to meet people. So I think it kind of went hand in hand with that level of independence as well as being able to go and actually meet people in person.
That's wonderful. And what was your path to the Kelly Brush Foundation and the camp?
Yeah. So it's funny because adaptive mountain biking was never really on my list at all. I was into sports before my injury, but adaptive mountain biking is one of those things that's like extreme. Like it's not something that you just play in
Right.
school or you're introduced into, right? Unless you're part
Yeah,
of that
no, just
world
watching the
already.
movie, I'm like, oh my God,
Yeah,
you worry about getting
exactly.
more disabled.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm not like a huge adrenaline junkie either.
Yeah,
So, and I don't have any boys in the family either. And that's like one of
right.
those things where they like dirt bike
Yeah,
and
sure,
those things
right.
from an early age, right? Yeah. But I saw this, I love to travel. And what really got me intrigued, I had seen it as a post on social media, I believe.
Okay.
It was adaptive mountain biking in Vermont in October. And all
Okay.
I thought was like, wow, like I love the fall. I love the foliage.
It's
Vermont
perfect.
sounds like a great idea, you know? But I didn't really think too much into the mountain biking part until I was at the Rolettes wheelchair dance summer camp in LA.
Oh,
And
nice.
I actually met Amy, the program coordinator for the Kelly Brush Foundation there.
Okay.
And she probably took around 30 minutes to an hour to finally convince me to apply for the grant for the mountain biking camp. And that's kind of how it all happened. I ended up receiving the grant with another friend, and both of us quads didn't know if we could do it. And so she kind of convinced us and was like, yeah, we got you. And that's how we kind of ended up there.
That's so great. And it's such a positive spirit around that organization.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit what it was like to be there and sort of experience that for the first time.
Yeah, like I said, mountain biking was one of those things I had no clue about. And I kind of went in blind to the camp as well. So I didn't really know what to expect. But we got there and we just kind of jumped right in. It was, it's a different feeling when you have people that just kind of get it from the beginning. Like
Right.
they know what you need, everything is set up for you, accessible rooms and lodging and having the different experiences of different riders, but also the camp itself was designed specifically for spinal cord injury. So
Sure.
everything was already set for you, the
Yeah.
adaptations. And so that kind of thing is not something that you see very often.
Yeah.
But it kind of gave me that confidence. So they're like, wow, yeah, you could totally do it. Yeah, we got you. We've done this before many times. And that gave me the confidence too, and that camaraderie with different spinal cord injury, but we're still all the
Yep.
same. It was really it challenged myself. I remember I teared up just being like, wow, them rooting me on really, really was like the highlight of the trip. It wasn't even that I successfully, went down the
Right.
mountain without falling or like anything like that.
Right.
It was more of like, oh, everybody's rooting you on to do it, to try it, and
Yeah.
it's just one of those feelings that it's like, wow, you're in community and it's just something like those memories that, they stick with you long after and you take it with
Sure.
you, from there on out in life and in other things that you're willing to try.
Sure. Now, when did you realize they were filming a movie?
Oh my gosh. I didn't even know until I got a call from the director, Byrne. I
Okay.
got a call from her like 2 months, I want to say, before the Laguna Beach showing.
You're kidding
And
me.
so this was like a year after. Yeah, a year after the camp.
So you had no idea at the time
I
that they
had
were planning this movie.
no idea. She just asked me if, like, I remember just her asking me if I could be interviewed about my experience because it was my first time, coming from California and a new writer and just being at the camp. And so I was like, yeah, sure. Like, I didn't think anything of it. I thought they were going to use it for, Kelly Brush,
Yeah, sure.
footage and that kind of thing. But yeah, it was like a year later, she called me and was like, hey, you have like, I want to invite you to a showing. You actually have a significant part in this movie that I made. And I was like, what movie? Did I sign something?
Yeah,
Like,
right, right.
yeah, I was like, what did I sign? Like, oh my gosh, what did I say? I don't remember what I said. Oh, I remember asking her, I was like, did I do something weird in the movie? Like, what
Right,
exactly
right.
did you use? Yeah. So it was about a year after, but it was crazy. Yeah.
That's so cool. Now, what's it been like? Because I know you've been part of a lot of the promotion that's around the film. What's it been
Yeah.
like to meet people after they've experienced it? Because for everybody out there, you've got to go see this movie, The Best Day Ever. It's an incredibly emotional movie.
Mhm.
And it's just the visuals are beautiful. It really is an inspiring movie. So,
Yeah.
what's the crowd reaction been?
Yeah. So, when you and I saw it at the same time together for the first time. So,
Wow, I didn't
um,
realize that.
yeah, so I hadn't seen it before then, and Byrne kind of was like, "Hey, yeah, I want you to not see or hear anything about this until you see it for the first time in Laguna Beach at the film festival." And I was like, "Okay, sure." And I was kind of nervous because, like, am I gonna
Yeah,
cry? Am I
sure.
gonna laugh? Like, what did you put in this movie? And so I didn't really know too much about it and what exactly the movie was going to be about, other than what I experienced at mountain biking camp.
Yeah,
It was
sure.
so much more than that. And I think the crowd kind of was stunned too, in that it wasn't just about, I think a lot of the times we see a lot of media representation of disabled people overcoming something or having a
Yes.
hardship and having that kind of representation, which is great. But this movie was more about the disabled joy and also the advocacy in making
Yep.
trails accessible
Yep.
for everybody. and not accessible in a way that's like we tend to think about like that everything is easy and all of that. These are like hard trails they're going down,
That's
right?
what
Like,
struck me about the movie is when they're
yeah,
recreating those intense, like,
exactly.
dips and rocks. I'm like, "They're
Right.
making this intense," but, I mean,
Right.
that's the point of mountain biking, I guess.
Exactly. And it's that joy that people find in the sport and
Yeah,
how they tackle it and how they figure out the ride with other, non-disabled riders out there.
sure.
So for me, just being able to share my experience of like never being into mountain biking, never understanding what
Yeah,
it was, to just getting in that bike and being able to get down there and out of my chair, and just feeling free for those 3 days out there
yeah,
was really amazing. And I think the crowd reaction is just like, wow, I didn't know this was a thing. And
yeah,
that's kind of
right.
where I was before I started mountain biking. and
Yeah,
and I think they appreciate that. And I think when I speak to the crowd too, when I do the panels,
yeah,
and that thing too, I always tell people it translates to real life, right? That advocacy
sure.
for disabled people. And not everything is accessible, but everything is adaptable with the right people. And I think
Yeah,
that's how Kelly Brush came into my life. I was like, wow, I didn't know this was adaptable for a quad, but
yeah.
at this camp, we made it happen, and why can't we use that same philosophy for anything in our lives?
Absolutely. Oh, you were great in the movie, by the way. I just
Oh,
need to get
thank
that
you.
out there. And the
Thank
movie's great, so everybody needs to go see it. Now, I follow you on social media,
uh
and I noticed that you picked up wheelchair tennis. And
Yes.
it's in your post, you mentioned that you had played tennis before you
Mhm.
were injured, and now you're back into it. And I used to play, my shoulder's bad now, but
Uh-huh.
it's a very difficult sport to learn. And I just want to know how you're feeling about it because I
Yeah.
mean the strokes are the same. It's just the timing and everything else is completely different. So I'm anxious to hear your perspective.
Well, man, I thought, tennis is hard, okay? But
Yeah.
wheelchair tennis is a whole other beast. I was like, before I actually went out onto the court, and it's funny because it was the same concept with the mountain biking. I didn't know if I was gonna be able to do it as a quad. And so, I also had played competitively in high school, and I really, really loved playing tennis. And
Sure.
I just and, my family, my dad and my sister still play,
Oh, nice.
now. Yeah, and, I would just joke around and just pick up a tennis racket, but I wouldn't actually, like, be serious about playing.
Yeah.
I was always a little hesitant because I loved it so much that I didn't want
Oh,
that feeling
sure.
to go away, right? Like,
Yep.
post-injury, and so I had a lot of hesitancy, but this last weekend was the first time I actually went out there and actually played in a sports chair, not necessarily a tennis chair. I was just kinda like, "Do you have an extra chair for me? Like, I wanna try this
Yeah.
out." It was a USTA sanctioned all-comers wheelchair tennis camp,
That's great.
and I thought there were gonna be beginners. I was the only beginner there. Yes, it was 3
Yeah.
days of me trying to figure out how to hold my racket, push
Yep.
my chair, and hit the ball.
Yep.
And it was intense. I have Band-Aids all over my hands.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it was such an amazing feeling to be back out on the court.
Yes.
It was hard and frustrating, trying to figure out and trying to separate life before injury playing tennis and
Yes.
now playing tennis. But man, seeing the other players out there just hitting those shots that I was just like, "Oh my gosh,
Yep.
that is amazing." Like, I wanna do that now, and I have a new challenge for me, and I think
I think it's great. First of
yeah,
all, when I played, I was so impressed with the top players,
yeah,
and a lot of them were competitive players before they were injured. So,
mhm,
like you, they had
yeah,
the knowledge and the skills. They just had to adapt it to the chair. So,
right.
in
Which is the
6
hardest
months, I'm going to
part.
talk to you, and you're going to be winning tournaments all over the place.
Oh, man, we'll see. Let
Yeah.
me try to figure out
Uh,
how to get in that how to
uh,
push that chair.
but
Yeah.
stick with it because it's all
Yeah.
about timing. The other thing that I
Mhm.
will say about it that you'll figure out is that it enables you to play with able-bodied people because you'll get
Yes.
2 bounces, they'll get 1 bounce, and that way
Right.
you're playing with your family again, and it
Yeah.
creates an opportunity again to sort of get back with some of your
Yes.
friends that maybe, they're not
Exactly.
gonna
Yeah.
be adaptive mountain biking, but they can certainly play tennis.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm gonna be your biggest fan on the sidelines. So there were a couple of things that I wanted to ask you. And when I was kind of doing a little bit of research, you were studying medicine at the American University of Antigua. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
And then you were planning to open an orphanage for with your family. Is that
Yeah.
still part of the plan or what's going on?
So I was in my second year of med school when I got injured.
Okay.
And then it took me about 2.5 years post injury to kind of regain strength and
Yep.
go through
Sure.
rehab and all of that. And my injury changed the path a little bit, but it didn't necessarily change the purpose. Like I was able to graduate from med school, but residency was a little bit more difficult for
Yep.
me to attain. So I decided that that wasn't the path no longer.
Okay.
But I've always wanted to serve others and I still do, and I continue to do that in my daily life now, but
Sure.
today it looks more of like mentorship, the advocacy, access and inclusion, consulting in different
Love it.
spaces, and then obviously supporting, others navigating the same now. Uh I mean, I still plan to use my medical background
Yep.
and live experience in different ways to help people, but I think the vision has evolved a little bit and I'm
Yep.
still figuring it out.
Yep.
But my heart is still in it, in that, and I think my ultimate goal for my family and I, is to support people with disabilities and chronic illnesses, and I want that to happen here, but also in India as well. We're very,
Yeah.
um, fortunate that we have family in India and we have family here, and so I'm fortunate that I have the support to be able to travel there. It's not the most
Sure.
accessible of places, but I
Yeah.
know my family and I have been discussing hopefully opening up a nonprofit to do that. We wanted to do an orphanage at first, and that was prior to injury, but now
Yeah.
we're thinking more of the access in terms of providing like wheelchairs and mobility devices for people in
Sure.
India. But yeah, so we're kind of working on it. That's something that
No,
we've been
that's
thinking
wonderful.
about.
It's a great
Yeah,
evolution of
yeah,
sort of what your expertise is and what you want to
right.
mold it for the future. So I think it's a great idea.
Yeah.
And just in your experience so far, what advice would you give to someone that might be in a situation like you were 11 years ago?
Yeah, it's so funny because when I get asked this question, I feel like it changes with every year that I've
Sure.
been injured and things change.
Yeah.
But I think looking back, like, I think giving yourself permission to grieve that life is important, but
Yes.
don't stay there, right? Like, your
Yep.
life isn't over. It's definitely different. It's definitely challenging, but in those challenging and difficult times, there is joy and there is purpose. You'll find your independence and that sense of adventure again. Find your community, connect
Yeah.
with people who really understand this life. It's hard. I have a support system, like I said, in my family, but they don't
Yeah.
understand everything about a disability, right?
Yeah. Sure.
Um, yeah, and then most importantly, I think it's like don't let anyone, including yourself, really define your limits too early.
Yep.
You're still you. You still have your dreams and your hopes and your goals, and there's still such like you have your future ahead of you, right? And like I said before, everything may not be accessible, but it's adaptable with the right people. So I think it's important to remember
That's
that.
great. And that's very sage advice. Now, you mentioned traveling, which, can be in its own challenge.
Yes.
But can you tell me about some of the best trips you've taken with your disability?
Yeah, I'm glad that you said best trips because if you said best trip, I don't think I can choose just one. I've had so many incredible experiences
Sure,
traveling.
sure.
Travel is intimidating already, but as a disabled person, I think it's one of those challenges that a lot of people find hard to take on.
Sure.
Uh, I think for me, I think some of the best trips I've had have always been with people, not necessarily the places.
It's the
Um,
group of people you're with, not
Right,
necessarily where
exactly.
you
They're the
are.
ones that make it so fun and so memorable. I think for my sister's 30th birthday, um, we didn't even research it too much. We kind of just went to Italy and we explored the
Nice.
Amalfi Coast and Sorrento together. I
How is the
remember my
accessibility there? I'm
yeah,
obsessed with the Amalfi Coast.
like I remember I took my Smart Drive Power Assist and the Amalfi Coast is all hills and my
Yeah,
Smart Drive decided to
right.
die. And so my sister just pushed me up the entire the
Oh, nice.
entire way. Sorrento was actually pretty accessible.
Yep.
Um, and then the trains actually were pretty accessible.
Oh, cool.
And so that was really nice. And then we ended up staying in Airbnb that worked for me. And
Great.
so that actually worked out really well. But I think I think most accessible, like, international place I've been to is probably Barcelona.
Nice.
But that whole trip I went with my family. We did, the Spain and Portugal, and I think their
Yeah,
train system is amazing, and so we got
cool.
to do the trains, yeah. But I think, for me, I think one of the most meaningful trips I've taken and traveled independently, actually, was I traveled independently for the first time, I believe. I flew to Dallas for my best friend's surprise engagement,
Oh, cool.
and I remember I took an Uber by myself. I checked in at the hotel by myself.
There you go.
I fell out of my wheelchair for the first
Yep,
time myself in the hotel room.
it's gonna happen, right?
Yeah, but I somehow did a Florida chair transfer, by myself.
Good for
Think
you.
it was the adrenaline. I think I was too scared that
Oh,
they were gonna
yeah,
have to
no,
call
it's
yeah, they were gonna have to call the fire department or
sure.
something, but
Right.
yeah, I think that's, like, the most meaningful is, like, being able to challenge myself through travel.
Yeah, you should be proud of yourself, that's huge.
Yeah.
We're already having fun. I'm having a
Yeah.
little more fun. So, what is the most asked question that you get from random strangers about being disabled?
Wow, okay. I think from random strangers, I think it's more of like, what like, will you ever walk again? I think is what I
Okay.
always get that question. I
Yeah.
think it's because they see me too because I have an incomplete injury, so I'm able to stand and take a few steps here and there.
Okay, sure.
So, yeah, so they see me do those things and they'll ask like, "Will you be able to ever walk again?" And I think what they mean is like without the chair functionally, right?
Right, right, right.
Yeah, and I think I understand it comes from curiosity and hope. It also reflects how much people associate walking with like worth or recovery too,
Yeah,
if
yeah,
we
yeah.
think about it. And I did too in the beginning. But now my focus is, it isn't really on returning onto who I was before and into walking. It's continuing to build that full and meaningful life for myself as I am now.
Absolutely.
And so, like, I always tell people, like, yeah, I don't know, but I'm doing great how I am right now, and so I just wanna
Absolutely.
continue that way, and so that's kinda how I answer the question because it is an awkward awkward question to answer from strangers.
It
I'm like,
is.
"I
Yeah,
don't know how to
totally.
answer that." Yeah.
So I close these episodes with a weird question, but it
Yeah.
elicits a good response usually. And the question is, if I were to clone you and there were two Gretchens sitting in front of me,
Yeah.
what question would I ask to reveal the real Gretchen?
Oh my gosh, okay, my friends probably I think it's more of like because I love so many things. I think if you ask, like, do you want to go hang out and visit a bookstore and grab a, mocha latte, for the afternoon? If I say no to any of those things, it's not me. That's one of the things I love, like going to a
Nice, you're up for
bookstore
it.
and grabbing a coffee. Yeah. So if I say no to that, there's something wrong 100%.
I love it. I
Yeah.
love it. Well, listen, Gretchen, I appreciate you taking this time. Just from the moment I met you, I loved your spirit. I think you're an amazing person. I think your attitude is exactly what you need to do to sort of spread the joy that you're doing. I'm glad you're out there inspiring people with the movie and with your other advocacy work. I just want to cheer you on from the sidelines. And
No,
I'll
yeah,
be
thank
watching
you.
you from the side of the tennis court.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, and thank
Oh,
you so much for all the
absolutely.
support, yeah.
Thanks, Gretchen. I appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed that episode, and I hope you'll click like and subscribe so you can meet the mighty.